Hey guys, welcome to the Pygame tutorial. In this tutorial, throughout the series, we will be creating a Pong game. As we will be doing that, I will explain to you the Pygame module. So, let's right away get to it. Okay, so we want to start off by importing Pygame. Now, that's simply a Python module import function, so import Pygame. Python is like, alright, let's import this module. And the Pygame module hasn't actually been called yet, so let's right away do that. The way to call it is doing pygame.init. Pygame.init basically says anything that has the word Pygame in it as its material, we will call. So let's start off with the actual introduction. So before we start, I want to tell you that I hope you already know some Python because we will be using that since it is a Pygame tutorial, but I'm hoping you already know Python. So let's start off with creating a variable, which will be the screen width and screen height. But before we do that, we want to say some basic colors. We want to list some basic colors. So we can say colors. And let's do color black, red, and white. So black equals 0, 0, 0. White equals 255, 255, 255, and red equals, whoopsies, red equals 25500. I'll quickly summarize this. These are RBG values, so Python is like, alright, wow, that comes from the color palette. Okay, so first color is, let's say, some gradient of blue, second, some gradient of yellow, third, some gradient of green. Alright, so let's call that. So black is 0, 0, 0, white is 255, 255, 255, and red is 25500. Next up, we want to create the screen. So let's start off by creating the screen width, which we will call on later. So we can create the screen width simple 600. Screen height, we can create a simple 400. And we can say, next up, create the actual screen. Let's actually comment out in here. So we're creating the screen. And the way to create the screen is doing the pygame.draw function. It's basically a way of drawing onto the screen, and before we do that we need the display function. So let's create our display, our screen. So we can say our screen, we can call our screen screen main. No, that would be good. Main screen. Main screen will be equal to pygame dot. So as soon as I see pygame dot, the loop will go like this. Pygame dot, so it sees pygame dot, it's like, alright, whoa, 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 is there anything that configures pygame dot? Goes back to pygame.init, is like, alright, pygame.init is initiated, but is pygame imported? And then it goes into import pygame, is like, alright, so we will run this function. That means anything that has pygame dot will be run in our Python game. So let's go ahead and continue. Pygame.display, because we're dealing with a display, we want to create a screen. Display.setMode. Set mode basically means create the height and width, or the width and height of the actual display. And the screen width will be 600, and the screen height will be 400. Next up, we want to create a caption for our screen. So it's basically the title of our game. Let's call the title of our game. So we can right away do pygame dot, because this does come once again from the pygame module, and we can say pygame dot display set caption, because we're setting to caption obviously, and let's call this a string, and let's call this the modern Pong, modified Pong game. We're basically creating a Pong game. So next up, we want to initiate pygame.quit and quit at the very end, because we want our thing to actually exit so it doesn't take up more memory usage, and, you know, to make it cleaner. like actual games. So right now we want to create our main game loop. Because right now, if we run this, there's many problems because it will just, it will just instantly quit. So let's create our main game loop. Let's call game running equal to true. And we can say while true, we want the following events to happen. So for event in pygame dot event dot get, what this says is it says for each event. So let's if this was an array, then it would execute each of the following items. So pygame.event.get is basically one huge library where it shows you every single event that's happening. So I can show you right that by printing event. So if I run this, we receive the modified Pong Game. And you can see whenever I move my mouse around, thing in the background states the mouse motion, mouse position. So if I type in A, you can see the event, which is what we called print event, and for each event, so each event is being called, and we can see stuff is being printed out, but nothing is actually really happening. I'm just writing, but there's no execution of the actual code, and I want to modify that. So right now, what we need to import is the exit function, because pygame.quit won't simply be called. So right now, whenever I press on the exit, we can see that the Pygame event is called quit. So we will create the quit function. So let's exit out, but wait, we can't. So let's exit out of idle then to kill our program. So now that you know what pygame.event.get is, basically receives each event, we can say if the event.type, so basically the type of event, is equal to Pygame, once again comes from the Pygame library, is equal to quit. Remember, that was the name whenever I pressed X, it was called quit. Now, you actually have to make it all caps anytime you call a event type. That's just a no. So you should memorize that. And then we can say game running equals false. So basically what this means is it goes through the loop and it's like, alright, well, it basically means if the display is still on, we will leave it on, but whenever the X is pressed, we will kill the program and make idle close the display. So right now, it's a simple, thing the simple display I showed you, nothing really on it. So let's actually create a background for our display, which will be black. So we can say main screen dot fill and then the color. What this says is basically, what do you want to fill? Well, I want to fill the display. So it will say, alright, I'm gonna fill the display, but what color do you want? And I'm like, alright, well, I want 000, and Pygame is like, alright, I'll modify the display so it's 000, aka the background is black. Now, there's going to be a problem when I run this, and you're about to see it. You can actually see nothing's really black. Okay, the background isn't black. So what's the problem with that? Well, for one, it's not actually calling in. So imagine this as a normal a equals 50. Okay, so let's say a equals 50, and we call that. Alright, we run that module. Nothing's gonna happen. Even though a is assigned to 50, nothing happened because we couldn't really call a yet. So that's the same thing with main screen.fill. It's that. So I can say like draw something, like draw a rectangle. We can like draw a circle, draw anything. That's not actually how you draw things, but whenever we draw anything, nothing will happen because it's just basically an unused there. So it actually happens, but you don't see it. Now, one way to fix that is simply doing the pygame.display.update. You know what it means already. Goes Pygame module display, looks at our screen, and updates the screen. So if we run this, we will see that the modified Pong game is actually black. Now, so whenever I press X, it will instantly say program running, and I want to close that. So the last thing we want to do for episode 1 is create the FPS function. So let's go ahead and do that. FPS is important because in every game you have FPS. So let's say FPS is equal to 60. Alright, just a variable right now. Now what we want to do is FPS, lowercase, means completely different variable. We want to equal that to Pygame, something that comes from the Pygame module, and Pygame already has this FPS function. So pygame.time.clock. What that does is basically sets the FPS. Now, I did not actually set the FPS yet because this is uncalled. So we want to do that right now. I will do FPS.tick. .tick is an action. It's basically an action. So it's an action function already built in, and it basically calls the pygame.time.clock. So let's right away set our FPS. FPS.tick FPS sets the FPS for our game. So right now, at the end of episode 1, what do we have? We have a simple little background setup. We have the 600 by 400 screen, and we have the background. So now whenever we click on it or do anything, it doesn't crash. And when we press X, it is exited out. Next Pygame tutorial, I will teach you how to draw things on the screen and move them.